Hello and welcome to Teaching Physical Sciences. Today we're joined by Annabelle. Hello again, Annabelle.
Hello. It's such fun being here. Thank you for having me once again.
Oh, it's always a pleasure being here and having you here at least. It's only been 2 weeks since we saw you.
Yes. Short and sharp, but today with something completely different, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a very exciting show. We're looking forward to it.
I'm excited too.
And of course we have Dylan behind the buttons. He'll be watching.
They kept you back there.
Yeah. He will be watching all of the social media feeds to see if you're talking to us. Remember to use the hashtag MEScience or find us on Facebook at Digital Classroom South Africa. Or if you scroll down, you'll see that there's a little chat window that you can enter in a nickname, log in, and Dylan will be watching all of these places to see what you say to us. Now, today, yes, we're talking about revision, but we're talking more about the flipped classroom, aren't we?
We are. As a means to revision, but I've been using it now in my classroom this year for teaching as well. So it's teaching and revision, but we'll focus on revision today.
It is quite uncommon to find that in South Africa. We play with ideas and we read about ideas, but whether we actually follow them through or not is a different story.
Is. I think one of the reasons why it isn't as prolific in South Africa is perhaps computers, Wi-Fi, internet accessibility for a long time has not been where the rest of the world is. I think we're catching up.
Yes, and quite fast.
I think there's almost a terminal velocity, and the other places are more or less there, and we're getting there fast.
Are you by any chance a science teacher?
I've taught some science.
So we are going to speak about this topic as if you have all of the technology available to you. But we're speaking that way because we know sometime in the near future technology will be a lot more available, and then you can come back and you can watch this again and see if you can carry through some of these tips.
It's going to be a driver. If you take a look at just something like Tshwane municipality deciding that their Wi-Fi hotspots that are free and accessible, that's going to come into schools more and more, and ultimately, definitely, this is going to be a platform of which we can all go, and which every child will have access to educational resources. And that for me is powerful and it's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
Now, before we define what a flipped classroom is, I've been reading this book called Teach Like a Champion. And it is the last day today. This is our last show for this year. So this is the last tip we'll be going through.
Okay.
It's called Call and Response. It's technique number 23. And the quote says, the basic element of call and response is that you ask a question and the whole class calls out the answer in unison. Dylan, how do we feel about this?
Way to end on a high there.
It's not my favorite tip. And that's being sarcastic. And well, it's just like, ugh.
I wholeheartedly disagree with this tip.
Yes.
And because of something that I'm going to talk about quite a lot as the show goes on, and that is accountability for your learning. And I feel that this lets children hide and behind the loud voices, and the quiet voices are excluded from the educational process. So that's my objection to it. But I think there's more as well. I think, I
just don't see the point of it. Why would you want everyone to answer back at the same time? I always come back to the fact that the South African education system encourages conformity, and that's not where adults function.
No.
Anyone who makes a lot of money is not someone who conforms. They are people that think outside the box.
Correct.
So we're training our children to be people who are followers rather than leaders, and they don't think for themselves.
This is reminiscent of sitting in the grade 2 classroom and going 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12. Can we all call that back now, please?
Yes.
So it feels very one-dimensional.
So not a favorite tip.
No, there may be the odd time where, and certainly with a definition sometimes, I will read out a definition, I will put it up on the board, and I will say, can we all say this together?
Yes.
Just almost to overemphasize for effect. I don't see it necessarily as a teaching like a champion technique.
No. Nice play there. But there have been some other techniques
absolutely.
that have been good.
Sure.
So it's a pity we're ending on this one. Yes. Okay, so let's talk about this slide, flipped versus traditional.
Yes.
Maybe we should talk about the traditional first.
Yes. And it's what we all know. The teacher gets up, gives a lesson, the students take notes, or we give them some notes. They follow our instructions exactly as we say. We give an assessment, or we give them a little task to do in class, and then we send them off home to do some more.
Okay.
And that is very teacher-centered.
Yes.
And it goes entirely at the teacher's pace. I run the pace of that, and then the student gets home to do that homework, which we all know doesn't always get done until they are sitting at school the next morning out of somebody else's book. So we don't really know to what extent that is really consolidating the information for each and every student. So therein lies a problem.
Yeah, I'd like to stop you there and just say that we're not saying that the traditional classroom is bad in any way.
Oh no. It's just that there may be some other ways of doing things.
Yes.
And I mean, in having done so much flipped classroom this year, I have found that students don't like it as the 100% way of doing things. They want a little bit of traditional and a little bit of flipped and a little bit of traditional and a little bit of flipped. They miss the teacher when the teacher becomes completely absent.
Yes.
Yes. Or completely digitalized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Dylan.
Can I jump in there?
Oh, yes.
We went to visit Annabelle's classroom last week. We didn't believe that this could actually work. And it did work. And we spoke to a number of the kids, and what really struck home to me was how some of them said, yeah, no, this is good, and there are benefits to this, but like you were saying, I miss the teacher. And I think what some of them were saying is, I miss the human contact.
Correct.
I miss the conversation, I miss the discussion, and I miss the debate. And reflecting on that a little bit more, I think they're absolutely right, that there has to still be that human contact in the classroom. Otherwise, we're just learning from machines, and that will get you so far, but it's not going to get you the softer stuff.
No. And that's what we've gone into teaching for, to connect with students. I really feel that the flipped classroom gives you a real... I think we might get better results out of it. You know, like tick the boxes of putting information.
Well, let's define quickly what
it is.
Classroom is.
Yes. So, first I want to say that it's a teacher instructs, the kids will do the lesson in essence in their own time.
Okay.
And then it's within the classroom space that worksheets are worked through, and they do what would have been homework previously. Now, that has problems because I think it almost lands up with more homework for the kids, because now they have to have the whole lesson at home instead of the 7 examples at the end.
Yes.
So I'm not a big believer in homework. I believe children need space to be, in the same way as we come home from work and we'd like to kick off our shoes and just be a bit. I think we've overemphasized, and there's a lot of research to substantiate that more homework is not necessarily better. So I've chosen to flip my classroom in my classroom, where students are engaging with material independently via technological devices, so via video primarily.
Okay.
And then I am making them accountable for whether they did watch that video. We have this notion that if we stood up in front of the class and taught the lesson,
yes,
that, well, everyone understood it and we've given the lesson. But when do we double check that? Only 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later with a formal assessment. Suddenly we now give them a video and we expect them to do that on their own.
Yes.
And we feel like we better check on them. Well, we do check on them, and that, I think, is where the power of this particular method comes in, is that they are in my classroom. After having watched a video, they're being quizzed. So I have everything quiz formatted. So there's a personal accountability, and then I am available to facilitate their learning at that junction.
Okay, so just to make sure we're all on the same page, they're watching a video on their own device.
Yes.
So if I have a phone, I'm watching a video of you teaching.
Yes.
On it,
yes.
and I'm able to pause, rewind,
yes.
take notes, everything like that. Once I'm finished watching that video, then I do a quiz.
Correct.
Okay.
My general thing is to actually do it the other way around.
Yes.
They arrive having prepared for the quiz yesterday. So I'm it's a bit of a chicken egg thing, but my lesson starts with a quiz from yesterday's videos.
Okay.
Then they can spend as much time as they need to, and I have students who are very strong and often are doing their other homework by the end of my lesson.
Yes.
And other students who need to go home. I've got one student who has a father who's an engineer, and he helps her at home using the material that's there. Whilst she used to always feel lost and at sea, and her father always used to confuse her with his help, whilst now they've got that material to work with together.
Okay, so she's taking home the videos and watching them with her father, and he's assisting her.
She's weaker. She's having to spend more time.
Okay.
A very strong candidate spends less time. So suddenly I've individualized tuition.
Yes.
And the rewind, fast forward, and pause is again about them having control of the teaching. The didactic information, they pace it, which is awesome.
Now, we work a lot with video over here, obviously. And one of the biggest mind shifts for me was that I didn't have to keep re-emphasizing a point, because on video you can re-watch the same set of points over and over again.
Correct.
So you can impart the knowledge once, and if someone's not getting it, they can just re-watch the video.
Correct.
And then re-watch it again and carry on until they get the point. Yes, Dylan?
The problem with that, though, is it's not a panacea. Because if the video hasn't explained it in a way that the learner is able to understand, simply replaying it the video is going to explain it in the same way again and again and again. The benefit that a real life teacher has is that they can change and shift the way that they're explaining to help the learner understand. So again, it's useful, but it's not everything.
It isn't everything, and that again is I want to impress upon people that this does not remove the teacher from the teaching environment. I am in the room, and when they're not getting it, and my students are comfortable enough with me to say, they'll pause a video, they'll call me over and say, I don't know what you were saying here.
Yeah.
And I have the ability at that point, and that's what I'm loving, is because I'm getting through the content faster, I have so much more time to engage with the controversial points, with the difficult points, with the slight misunderstandings and the subtleties. And because the students are doing a quiz the next day, they immediately get feedback as to whether they do or do not understand that.
Yeah.
And then they ask more questions because it's clear that I don't understand that. So they're forced into engagement. And if they don't engage with me because they're shy, I've seen that they can't cope, and I will often just go and sit next to someone and say, come, let's do the next quiz together. And we'll do 3 questions together, and I'll let students, not always, but if somebody's got 7 wrong out of 8, I'll often say, do you want to watch that video again and then try that quiz again? Because really, I don't care about the quiz results. I use them, but they're a trifle in what I'm doing in the long term. I want to give them an opportunity to show that they have learnt.
So you do electronic quizzing?
I do.
So you do get immediate feedback?
Correct.
And it's marked for you?
Yes.
Yes.
So that is, and the students get immediate feedback, which is comforting or not. They love it when they get it right.
Yes.
But when they get it wrong, there's that immediate disappointment, and up goes the hand. I don't know why this is wrong, because the program tells them what the right answer is. So they've got the question, they've now got the right answer, and they still don't know why. They've got the ability to call me, and I can engage with them one-on-one and give them that interaction.
I think we will come to it later, so I'm not going to ask my question now.
Okay.
Yes. Shall we move on to your 5-point teaching strategy?
Yes.
Do you think we've defined the flipped classroom enough?
I think so. I think the whole thing is just that it's no longer... We're flipping it on its head in that more time is spent of the teacher engaging with debate and discussion and that sort of thing, and the didactic stuff, the pure imparting of knowledge, is happening via an electronic media.
Okay.
So...
Okay. And we're talking about revision today.
Yes,
specifically. And the reason we spoke about the flipped classroom first is because you're talking from a flipped classroom point of view.
Yes.
Okay, so these 5 teaching points are all from that point of view.
No. Actually, so many of these points can be done in any classroom.
Okay.
Because we're going to start with facilitating students making summaries. I'm going to do that via video.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean it can't be done by the teacher. I believe firmly that students don't have the necessary skills to study, and that we send them away with the book and we think that they'll get it all right, and they can't, because they don't know what the important bits were and what the unimportant bits were. And so facilitating the summarizing process is my first step. So I won't let anyone start engaging with past papers or anything until I can see that they've produced some summaries for me. And I don't just make them produce those summaries, I will facilitate the producing of those summaries.
Give me an example of how you would do this.
So today I'd like you all to summarize waves. Is not how I'm going to start. We're going to do waves. I'm going to do waves up on the board or on the transparency. And in my case, I'm going to do waves as a video. But anybody could do this. And I take the notes that I've given them, page through them, and try and show them where the relevant bits are. Can you see that's a definition? Tomorrow's and then give them perhaps 2 or 3 revision questions. I may, as you'll see later, quiz them the next day and then go on to the next one. But by tomorrow, I expect you to be able to summarize vectors on your own and show me that you've managed to distill the information.
So you do an example once or facilitate it once, and then after that you say, now you need to do it on your own.
It does depend on the crowd. Some crowds it may become very obvious that I need to do it again.
Yes.
And my intention, I've only been using the flipped classroom this year, so I haven't got to final revision, but my intention now is to have each section with me summarizing. If they feel unsettled, they can watch me guide them through summarizing. So that's my plan.
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
Your second point says design your revision worksheet to assist students to excel in the exam that has been set. I can see a couple of people getting upset about this. Why are you teaching to the test? Or
because we all do teach to the test. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I teach all through the year liberally. Let's look at that. But when we're going to be measured by the test. We're going to try at grade 11 level to get into a tertiary institution by the test. And in matric, we're teaching to a test. That counts a lot. There are high stakes to not doing well in the test.
Okay.
I don't believe that at revision time is a good time to chuck the children into the sea and say, let's see how you swim. That's the time that I'm quite happy to hold their hand, to facilitate, and to ensure that they are prepared for my assessment.
I like that analogy. It almost feels like you should be swimming in the ocean during the year.
Yes.
And having fun, and then closer to exams, then be going to the pool and practicing legs.
Yes, something along those lines. It's really just that there's so much anxiety around exams already. Do we need to make it worse?
Yeah.
I've done experiments where I have given, this is on class tests, not on exams, where I have given the test as a revision worksheet beforehand.
Yes.
And the students still don't necessarily perform amazingly because they get overwhelmed when they're sitting in the test and they don't do the preparation the right way. So I want to help them do their preparation the right way.
What is the difference between a revision worksheet and a summary?
A summary should be short and sharp and shouldn't have the odd example, which is very routine, but really mainly about definitions and concepts. Revision worksheets are past questions where they can engage, and that's what comes up next. They must do. There's no studying that happens by reading. It has to be pen, paper, child sitting in a spot and writing.
Yes.
It is through the doing, and that's why they need to do their own summary. Even if I'm facilitating that process, they are still the doer. And when we're doing revision, it doesn't help if I'm going to let them have a worksheet and then they just watch the video. They need to have done it and then watch the video.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've spoken about this. You can't make students do it the way you want to, but you can advise them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Goes back to conformity. Your third point is students must do their own revision.
Yes, and that is really, I'm passionate about this. There's the apathetic learner, and I don't want the apathetic learner in my room. It's a person who sits back and says, feed me, feed me, feed me.
It's a consumer.
Exactly. I want them to engage.
Yes, Dylan.
I would even say that's not learning, that there is no such thing as apathetic learning. Learning is by its nature an active process.
Correct. So those are juxtaposed, actually.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah. But there are a lot of people who are apathetically sitting in your classroom.
And they're not going to be learning.
Not learning. So it's about encouraging the learning within your room, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what I've noticed on these 5 points so far is that a lot of your revision is content-based. It's not do past papers in class so much as let's go through waves and then let's go through vectors.
And let's do some questions, but retargeting it. I don't believe in photocopying 12 past papers, giving students a big fat pile and with the memos and saying, knock yourself out. To me, that's copping out of revision.
Okay.
Revision.
Going to make some people unhappy, but I'm completely with you, 100%.
It's work. It's work. Revision isn't the end of the year where we put our feet up and let them do it.
Yes.
We hold a responsibility for getting them. It's not how we start the race. It's how we end the race that counts. And that's not only for the students, it's for us as teachers as well.
And ultimately, if you do good revision, your papers will be easier to mark. So it works out better for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your 4th point says quiz students.
Okay, so here's where we're starting to look at flipped classroom and digital techniques. I am quizzing students all the time. So in my revision, I will set up 5 questions on waves. I'll have 5 fairly routine type examples just to see that they've re-engaged with material from term 1, and they'll then get the feedback. And we'll talk a little bit more about the digital quizzing. But if you don't have a digital program, it's easy enough to say to everyone you need to be at question 7.3, and then while they're all working on the next bit, to have them come past you and you mark 3 of the questions there to check where they're at. In other words, you're forcing them into accountability again, which is a theme that I think you've started to hear from me quite often.
So you're also forcing them into a study timetable.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, helping them with that, because why do we assume that they've got that skill?
I've heard some teachers say, well, that's a skill you should learn in life orientation. I don't think life orientation teachers know very much about how to study maths and science.
Correct. And that is exactly what I'm saying, is that they get told to do a lot of mind maps.
Yes.
And, well, mind map, until you've sat and worked through some past examples, isn't worth the paper it just got written on.
No.
Yeah.
It can be a nice way to bring everything together.
Correct.
But you still need to be sitting working.
It's only point 1 on the 5-point teaching strategy.
Yes, that's true. And point 5 says consolidate via video.
And that's me.
Yes.
That's where I am. Afterwards, at 10 o'clock at night, when students are working, they could watch a video of me doing those examples. And those videos are being done via applications on iPads, but on any sort of a tablet. There's one known as EduCreations. There's another one known as Explain Everything. I then teach. It's kind of like a whiteboard tablet. And I bring up the question and I do it underneath, and students can press pause, rewind, and I try to get the points across as well. So I kind of teach at the same time, saying, remember that when we're converting from, I don't just do the example, when we're converting from meters per second to kilometers per hour, we want to go through the following steps.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's all on video. So now it's accessible to students every day of the week, all the time.
And also for next year's class as well.
Oh, well, that's that's the hope.
Yes. But you don't also need to have those fancy apps or anything like that. Simple cell phone camera can record you writing down.
They can. Certainly can.
Yeah.
Yes. And the only problem with video is that it's much more data hungry. Whilst using the apps keeps the size of the files a little bit more manageable and smaller.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that. Okay, your 3 pressure points. The first one says set students up for success. What do you mean?
I mean that we have many, many teachers who are seeing where they can catch students out. And I don't believe that's what the game's about.
I remember one of my first years of teaching. I had this grade 10 class. Oh, it was awful. They just took advantage of me. And I did not cope. As a
first-year teacher.
Yeah. And then I did a test, and I thought, this is it. I'm just going to make it terrible. And sure enough, most of them failed, and it just made it even worse for me the next week. I learned a very valuable lesson.
Glad you handled that in such a mature way.
as every 23-year-old arriving at teaching does.
Yes.
It's not about us showing the students how clever we are. It's showing them how we can guide them through the process of learning. And that's what I'm saying, is that when I set up my worksheets, I read what have I done for the exam. I don't set the same question, but I make sure that when I'm asking them to write a definition, instead of the exam's going to ask for transverse waves, the revision worksheet's going to ask for longitudinal waves, which hopefully has triggered in their mind that they need to know the definition of both of those things. And all of that type of thing where I don't want to waste their time with 12 past papers, and that's where I come from. I'm setting them up for success. I'm trying, and what happens is my students trust me now.
Yeah.
They do my revision, and by the time we get to matric, they're going to do the 12 targeted past papers. Why do I know they're targeted? Because that's how matric's set up. The same, question 1 will always be about electrodynamics. Question 2 will always be...
Yes.
So it's not like the final exam isn't set up this way. It is. Yeah.
Your second point says force a pace of revision. So, and we've spoken about this briefly.
Yes. Setting up their study timetable. So on Monday we're going to do waves. On Tuesday we're going to do vectors. On Wednesday we're going to do graphs. On Thursday we're going to do energy. And we've only really got 2 weeks for revision. So it needs to be quite a fast pace. Yeah. But at least by the time they've left your classroom, they've engaged with all the material.
And you're not having any time where they're just sitting and working through a past paper. All of it is targeted to a particular section.
Correct. That's the idea. Sometimes I've also put my last year's papers on, so that if a student's finished what I targeted for that lesson, they can then go and start working through last year's paper. Yes. They're welcome to do that as well. Yeah.
And your third point says allow students to work at their own pace. Okay, you just said force the pace of revision and then allow students to work at their own pace. How is that possible?
Well, if we've got everything on video, they are in a position to look at the summary and do that as fast or as slowly as they like. They've got the hour of my lesson. Okay. I've set enough work, hopefully, to entertain them for approximately an hour, the average student.
Entertain.
The fastest student and my brightest student may finish in 45 minutes. And that's okay. Why do they need to listen to me drone on while I'm trying to explain something to someone else? And my slowest student may have to spend half an hour at home. Yes. So suddenly they've got an individualized tuition program. But by tomorrow they better know something about waves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm forcing that pace, but I'm not forcing how fast they have to assimilate the information. That's happening at their own pace.
Okay, with the pause, rewind, fast forward, all of those things.
Yes.
Okay, shall we move on to good ideas?
Yes.
The first one says make students accountable for their learning.
I feel very strongly about accountability, and that's come through, I think, all the webinars I've ever been at, is that by quizzing them, they have to answer. They're not just... As Dylan said, they're not just not learning in my classroom. They're not just sitting there. I am forcing them into learning, and that is by saying, I'd like to see your summary. I would like to see the work that you've done, and let's have a little quiz and see whether you've got any information into your head. So that's accountability, and I believe that setting up this cycle forces them into accountability.
I read something ages ago, and I can't remember what context it was in or anything. I don't think it was even based on education. But it was saying something to the effect of people are happier to perform at a lower rate if they know that other people are performing at a lower rate. And I found this with handing out tests. Yes. When they see that other people have a lower mark than them, then they stop trying. But this individual quizzing, and they get their own results on their device. So no one's handing out results or anything like that. It does give them more accountability.
It does. And I mean, the other thing on that quote, on that thought, another thought is if you set high standards, people rise up to them.
Yes.
And so because my quizzes are not overly challenging, everyone wants to actually get 90 to 100% on them, because they are really just... They're dipsticks. I haven't set huge level 3 and 4 questions in them. They're dipsticks to check that you with the program. which
okay.
is...
And you would follow up then on people who aren't with the program?
Yes, absolutely. And that's where, coming back to Dylan's point, is that I'm not sitting in the... After I've made the videos, I don't go and sit back and recline in my chair. I'm walking around the room all the time, and I'm actually, in many ways, more available. My strong student hardly ever calls on me. My weak students have so much more of my time, and therefore more learning is happening in my space. And I find that so exciting, I can't tell you. It's just amazing.
Yeah. The next point, give students the resources to empower them to learn.
Yes, and we've talked about that. That's the 5 steps. That's first making sure that they can... that they've done a summary. And then my resource that I'm giving them is a video to show them how to do that summary. And then the next resource is I'm giving them some questions that I know are going to prepare them towards the exam. And then the next resource I'm giving them is me going through those questions that are going to empower them to be able to answer the exam well.
Yeah.
So, again, setting up for a success and giving them the tools that will make them amazing.
And ultimately, success does breed success.
Absolutely, because especially with maths and science, those are subjects where confidence in the subject has so much to do with performance. Once they feel defeated,
that's it.
You might as well stop teaching. So it's really about pulling that house up one row of bricks at a time and making sure that that row's straight. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really awesome.
And your last one says Goldilocks, not too hard and not too easy. Please explain.
Let's not trivialize by asking questions that everybody's just going to get right all the time.
Yes.
Because nobody feels any sense of accomplishment. But if we make it too hard, everybody feels like they are failures. So it's catching that balance, and that's life, catching the balance.
Yes, Dylan?
I think there's another reason, if I may, for finding that balance. Assessments that are too easy or too hard are just simply not useful.
Correct.
And they're not useful to you as a teacher because you're not going to get anything valuable back from them.
Absolutely. When the whole class gets 100%.
Yes, you're not going to learn anything as a teacher.
Yes.
And if everyone gets 0%, you're still not going to have learned anything other than, well, they can't answer the second-year university maths questions. You didn't need an assessment for that.
No. We need differentiated questions. That's so important. And there should be a little bit at the bottom and a little bit at the top. And I sound a bit contradictory because my dipstick is often where they're aiming for 100%. But that is a dipstick quiz. It's different from everything that they're working through.
What, just on that point, what I found really interesting while looking at your class work through these quizzes is even though you've classified them as dipstick and pretty middle of the road, pretty much every question forced them to put the device aside and go to pen and paper and actually work out and work through their understanding, grapple with the concept on pen and paper, which I thought was a really good indication that the questions were spot on because they weren't of a nature that people felt they could just sort of cheat or guess.
Yes, absolutely. They and I encourage them to have paper, and I don't think devices should land up chucking pen and paper out. I believe pen and paper are so valuable. I'm also a tree hugger, so I feel where we can save paper, that's fantastic, and where we can integrate digital, but let's not throw any babies out with bathwater.
Yes.
There's a little bit of everything, and pen and paper is still so merit-worthy. Yeah. Right.
Well, speaking to that, we've got another slide now. Would you like to explain it to us?
We can set the identical question as our example, as homework, and again in a test. And students will perceive it differently.
Yes.
When we're doing it, the students will often say to me, "But you make it look so easy, ma'am." That's my gift. But the point is, following me doing it feels like 2 + 2 = 4. When they go home, it feels like something just a little more challenging and perhaps not very sensical. Yeah, there's a BODMAS thing in there and a little nonsensical.
It's the colon for.
I don't know.
I think it's divide. It's a ratio.
It's a ratio.
Yes. And then, but we wouldn't necessarily know that at home and we'd have no one to give us good advice on that.
Is that a true statement?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I didn't check my joke. I do know that 2 + 2 = 4 though, Dylan.
Yeah, right.
And then when they get to the test, the feeling of the students, even though it's not what we're doing to them, is that with 2 sheep flying, 1 yellow and the other headed right, how much does a pound of asphalt cost, given that the cow is 10 years old? I showed this to my classes on Tuesday.
Yes.
And they were just in hysterics. They said that is exactly how it feels.
Yes.
So it's really about setting them up so that they get the confidence to be able to do 2 + 2 = 4. And because I don't make them do their homework at home, there's one step in there where I'm facilitating and being available to help them to get it right. And then they do a little mini test called the quiz. With me nearby as well, and they're allowed to ask me questions during the quiz. I'm not going to tell them the answer, but I might say, have you drawn this out? Don't forget, meters per second, there's a long method to get 2 kilometers per hour. So I just drop helpful hints and then still expect them to engage, but I'm still there to decode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, what is G-class folders?
All right. For me, it's just been the most useful communication
Maybe I should
method.
clarify here. So now we've gone through all of our regular points. We're now going to go through how you practically do this.
Correct.
And we have mentioned that you use those other apps
Yes.
to record your videos.
Yes.
But now we need to talk about how you get your videos to your learners.
Correct.
And also how you test them.
Correct.
Okay.
So the first one is Google Sheets
Yes.
has an add-on, which is, all of this is completely free. And you work from your computer on it.
How would I gain access to Google Sheets?
I'd go onto Google and write Google Sheets, and then it would just happen.
Do you need an account, and does it cost money?
It doesn't cost money. You do need to eventually, at some point, if you set up a Google Drive, you will automatically get Google Sheets. Almost like a virus come onto your computer.
Okay.
Yeah, it just makes its way there.
That sounds like something I want now. No, we work a lot in Google Drive.
Yes.
And it's very useful. There's nothing scary about it. In fact, the presentations work a lot better than other presentation tools. So
Yes.
I would prefer it over other things.
So in Google, you would get all your students to register for a Google Drive. And it's free.
Yes.
Once they've registered on their smartphone or their iPad, from that moment forward, they never have to remember a password or anything. They will press Google Drive and they will have access to all the files in there.
Okay.
What happens is I will record videos or design worksheets and PDF them, and then I put them into the test folder.
Okay.
The view folder. Mine's called test, but it's a view folder.
Yes.
And all my students are able to view it as long as I've linked them in. It's a fairly long story as to how you link them in, and we might put something on the blog about how to actually set it all up. But it really is awesome. They're able to view whatever I put in. It's quick, it's easy. File management feels just like file managing on your computer.
Okay.
So you can put things into folders and you can categorize it by grades and all of that sort of thing. And then in the assignment folder, which is what's at the bottom of the screen, each individual student can talk to me. So they could put their work in there, and if I wanted to mark it, or they could let me know that they've put something in there, and I can go and I can take a look at perhaps a photograph that they took of their own working and say, where did I go wrong? Or something along those lines.
Okay.
So this method sets up a potential for two-way communication.
So all of this list
Yes.
is all different people.
Every different student who is linked onto my folders, yeah.
And we blocked out their names?
Yes, for their confidentiality,
Yes.
yeah.
But those are all names
Correct.
that are over there.
Whilst my view folder over there goes out to all of them as a blanket thing. I don't have to sit there and individually give Helen hers, Annabelle hers, Dylan hers. I don't have to invite you to look at those files or anything like that. Once I've put you into my G-class folder sheet,
Yes.
you automatically gain access. It just pops up in your Google Drive.
So if you put a video into Google Class something, then it will automatically go into each one of their folders?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's a very convenient way and a free way of communicating.
Other than the
Digital
data
media.
costs that they would then incur.
It does depend. And as I said, I don't see it lasting very long. Twining has already gone for free Wi-Fi spots all over the place. It's not far before the Minister of Education says there's Wi-Fi in a number of schools in South Africa, if not all. Yeah.
And then if they're connected to the Wi-Fi, then it's very easy for them to gain
Correct.
access.
And then one step further, if they're at school and they don't have Wi-Fi at home, they can always steal the videos off their Google Drive and put it on the device. And that's okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're looking at a slide that says Socrative.
Yes.
What is Socrative?
It's one of a multitude of quizzing programs, and I mean, I don't get any royalties off anything, and luckily it's also for free. So I'm punting one particular quizzing program. There are many. I like Socrative for Science because it allows you to maintain superscripts and subscripts, and it allows you to put in pictures that display on the same screen. Yes. So your H2O, the 2 will be small.
Okay.
You know, that type of thing is important in science, and many of the other programs don't allow you to do that. There really are. There's an abundance of quizzing programs. So I've found Socrative the best. Also, the students don't need a password to get in. I have a classroom number.
Yes.
And as they come into my classroom, they punch in my classroom number, and then my quiz pops up on their device.
Okay.
They don't have to register. They don't have to do anything. Just putting in my classroom number is enough. And it's it's a free app, and it's very easy to engage with for the students.
Okay. Well, shall we take a look at one of the...
So here's an example. I've put a picture in over there. And what's important is that I don't, as the 4 options, so it's always... I'm working predominantly with multiple choice. There are other ways. There's trues and falses, and you can give short responses. But I've chosen to mainly use multiple choice because it marks it for me. Once I've done the hard work of setting up the multiple choice questions, and I know Dylan feels strongly about multiple choice answers, there are 4 responses there, all of which would highlight a potential misconception.
Okay.
I haven't written over there that is... butanol, or because butanol would have 4 carbons and there would be an OH group, so it's blindingly wrong. All of those might make children, just because prop and pent both start with a P, often get them muddled up.
Yes.
So I've kind of stuck in a propene just to decoy there. They don't always know which side to number the carbon chain from, so I've put it as pen 2-ene and pen 3-ene, and then they could say, oh, maybe they're 4 carbons, and then that last little bit is a methyl group hanging off the side. And so that's another potential pitfall that a student might fall into.
Okay.
So it's not, they can't guess the answer. They need to draw this out, and they need to do it properly.
So if you were putting in an answer over here, you would click add, then you would type in the answer. And you choose which one is correct over there.
And the students will get it come up as a multiple choice. They then tap on A, B, C, or D, and then it tells them you got it right or you got it wrong.
So what's stopping them from copying from each other?
Socrative is beautiful.
Yes.
It lets me scramble all the order of all the questions
and
the order of the A, B, C, D. So in other words, every student is actually getting a different quiz. Not different content, but they're getting it at a different time. They don't know what their neighbour's question is at this stage.
Okay.
And even if their neighbour happens to, they've got the same picture down at the bottom of their screen, their A, B, C, and D is completely different.
Yeah.
So it really is handy that way. And you can also set it up to give the students feedback or not to give the students feedback. So you don't have to have them see that they got it right or wrong. You may decide for a certain purpose that wouldn't suit you. You can also, if you wanted with Socrative, you can even teacher pace it. So you can release one question at a time and the whole class is on the same page, which has merit if you perhaps are doing a guided lesson where there's a question and is everybody here? And now I'm going to guide on to the next thing.
Yes.
So it's quite versatile.
That's quite exciting.
Yes.
Okay. And we move on to, what is this?
The best part about Socrative, it marks it for you.
And of course, we have blocked out all of the names.
Yes, but those students, what the progress thing bar says there is that those students are all 100% complete with the quiz.
Okay.
The green lights come up in real time, so I can see exactly who's getting questions right and who's getting them wrong.
Okay.
And although it might say number 1C, that's what I put in as the correct answer. But it might have been on Dylan's device as a B. But for me, it just comes up all the way with my correct answer. So it unscrambles your information for you. And then the red lights show me that maybe that chap in the middle might need a little bit of my attention.
So this one
that
over
row
here.
who only got 2 out of 6. So we can go and spend some time while other students are watching the next video for tomorrow. I can go and sit next to him and spend a little bit of time fixing that up.
Let's say this person over here has also struggled with the same 2 questions.
I may well ask him to come sit next to me and do it together. The other thing that often happens is, you don't also want to over-target students and make them feel completely stupid.
Yes.
And often when they've seen the right answer, they've gained some knowledge because they got such quick feedback on it. So when you're sitting on 50% and there are quite a few people sitting on 30%, I may just come past and say, how are you feeling about that? Do you feel like you've consolidated? And often they don't need me to sit next to them. But that middle person definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it gives you so much insight as to where each of your students are, and I'm getting this insight daily. It's great. It's a lot of work, but it's great.
How long does it take you to set up one of these?
It depends how long they are, because some of them are 6 questions, some of them... I'm not making them all out of 10, or I kind of go on how many questions would meaningfully cover the work. Anything from 40 minutes, depends how many pictures you're putting in as well. Anything from 40 minutes to 2 hours.
And then the quiz is made. You don't have to remake it next year.
Socrative saves them all for you. So
and you don't have to mark them.
And you don't have to mark them. So it really is, once you've invested the time, and I would recommend to people in flipping classrooms to only do 1 grade per year.
Okay.
I didn't, because I saw how successful it was with the first grade and then got very excited. But it has been exhausting. 1 grade per year would be my advice.
Okay.
But yes, once you've got the resources, they're all there, which is terrific.
As long as the curriculum doesn't change.
I don't know, I have a good feeling that we've stabilized. I feel like we went all the way there and all the way back, and now we're sitting on something that might hold. That's my feeling. But I could be wrong.
I've just set up a quick quiz for everyone.
Oh, such fun.
So it is really quick and simple.
Okay.
I did it while you guys were just talking about it.
Fantastic.
And I tweeted the URL that they need to go to and the room number.
Oh, wonderful.
So anyone can go to that room number, join the quiz, and hopefully they get the right answer.
Yeah, they must. They must.
I'd like to know what the question is.
Oh, you'll have to go do the quiz.
Yes. Okay, now we have a list of what looks like results.
Correct. So now I can press, I'd like this as an Excel spreadsheet. So that page which just gave me red and green lights is helpful while in real time. But I'd really like to know what Helen got wrong and what the question was that she got wrong and what stupid answer she wrote down. And so this... Are you feeling fabulous right now?
I'll be the stupid one.
All right, it's what Annabelle did.
So Dylan's going to pull up the slide for us so that everyone can be on the same page.
Beg your pardon, sorry.
It's
I'm having too much fun with Socrative.
So over there is if sodium carbonate reacts with nitric acid, the products are, and we can see then what students have responded. And perhaps some are like completely off the page, and others perhaps have only made a subtle mistake. And you can, depending on time available, and especially if you've only got a few kids who've made a few mistakes, you can go and really target in on that. When there's big misconceptions, you may want to kind of stand up in front of the class and give them a little bit of you personally, reteaching question 2, where only about, less than half the people got that right. So maybe we can talk it through together again.
Yeah.
And so it means that what you're doing up front is meaningful and you're not wasting time with trivial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get a lot of information about that. You get every student's mark. On the quiz, you get percentages. You get the mark out of, I think that one was out of 6.
It looks like it.
Yeah. So you get so much information, and Socrative just does this all for free, and we like that about it. And if you go into Socrative now, you'll see that it's got a Halloween theme going.
What is the catch?
I'm not sure. I haven't found it. I really haven't. It's great.
Dylan, I think we should do your quiz quickly now.
Okay,
so how do we get to it?
So you need to go to Socrative. So just Google Socrative and it'll come up.
Okay, Socrative.
Okay, click on it. And then you'll find there the student login.
Yes.
Yep. And I need to give you the room number. So the room number is A
for apple.
A for apple.
Capital or lowercase?
Lowercase A.
Lowercase.
8, lowercase c.
Yes.
916.
916.
Lowercase a.
Yes.
1. Yep. And join the room.
Now, what's amazing about this is that I write that up on my board, and by the way, for the rest of your life, Dylan, that is your room number. So my room number never changes. So my students have almost got to memorize it, but it's written up on the top of my board, and they can always go into 802017, and they will find my quizzes there.
Okay, enter your name. Helen.
That's enough. They're not going to... Yeah, they're okay.
Okay.
You could have just gone HR.
How cool are the Vodacom teacher development webinars?
They are way cool. Amazing. Are all those right answers?
No, only one is right. Only one is right.
Well, if we're asking how cool, then
I
would say the answer is way cool.
Very useful. But did you see the little pumpkin?
Yes, it was very brief though.
I know, but at the end it does come up for longer.
So that's quite useful then.
Very useful, in fact.
And it's accessible on most devices?
On PCs and on any smart device and any tablet.
And I saw earlier you had a picture. Let's go back to that slide. This one over here. How does that show up on a phone?
Oh, funnily enough, I think shockingly, but my students never seem to mind. You know, this generation are just so comfortable on that little screen. And they engage. I've once had a student ask me can I show them the pictures bigger? Okay. They really just seem to be so good at interacting on a tiny little screen. I find it totally unsatisfactory myself. I like to be on my iPad, but that's me. I'm old. My eyes are dim. I cannot see.
Oh dear. Well, this is a really interesting way to do revision, and I like the idea that they can take videos home and watch the section revision video in their own time.
Yes. Yeah. So it is more work for us. It is once it's set up, and the more, I think the next year when I do this over again, I think I'm going to be even more available to my students because I'm going to, none of my time is going to be spent prepping. So you just become more and more available, and then they can pop in the afternoon, and but they don't because they're comfy on a device. Yeah, and also you're available to them whenever they choose to do the work.
Yeah,
which is fantastic.
Yes. Well, that is it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Dylan.
Oh dear.
Last webinar for the year.
Last webinar for the year.
Do you have any parting comments before we say goodbye?
No, well, just to the two of you, and to say congratulations on what you've done this year, and the opportunity for everybody's development, and the exciting people that you've got to talk about things. And I think this is a real meaningful contribution to developing maths and science in South Africa, and I think there's a huge need for it. So, champ to the two of you. Well done.
We are, of course, very grateful to the Vodacom Foundation and all the partners in the digital classroom who do make this possible.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much, and thank you for joining us.
It has been such a pleasure, and it's so exciting. And as I said, we've talked about possibly making some of the resources available via blogs and things like that. Yeah, because I have.
So watch the blog.
Yes, I've made some videos for teachers on how to use iPads and use Socrative and use G-class folders and things like that.
So I'll definitely make those available on the blog as soon as you share them with me.
Yes, on your Google Drive.
Fantastic.
Via G-class folder.
Good luck with the exam season ahead.
Yes.
And happy teaching. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
created using Powtoon.